welcome to a new episode of Anatomy of a Music Cue. So, I did this interesting cue for the new Bunnyman remix. We're doing like a 70s style grindhouse remix of the original Bunnyman movie. But I was asked to do a sort of kind of 70s light jazz track, kind of schmaltzy, but also with a Morricone type vibe to it, like with the voice. So I use MELLOTRON choir for that. But anyway, let me just play you the track here, and then I'll talk about how I achieved it. So let's take a listen here. Open up the scene here. Okay. Sorry about that glitchy audio there. I don't know, check my audio preferences here. Alright, that's fine. Okay, so the first thing I did was I matched the tempo of the temp track that he laid in there to get the cuts similar. And I can't really play what the temp track was because of YouTube. I'll be flagged or whatever. So, but I started with the chord progression, which is a basic 2-5-1 kind of jazz thing. But I used the MELLOTRON, the flange strings here. Let me just see what I used. I put a flanger on these MELLOTRON strings. Let's listen to just that track, which is the basic progression here. So this is kind of my starting point before I even wrote the melody. Or actually, let me take off. I did some of this. I use this at the end. I'll talk about this to get that sort of record warp sound and make it sound older. It does some filtering too. This is the isotope vinyl effect. But let me take that off for now, because I'll show you that at the end. And also the mastering stuff, that can stay. Alright, so. So you get the idea with that. It's like a G minor type thing, but jazz kind of progression, the 2-5-1s. So pretty standard, straightforward. Except sometimes I go to the G major 7 here instead of the minor chord. So anyway, that's something very sort of 70s. So I started with that. And then from there, let me just bring this in. I figured out what I was going to do with the melody. So for that, I usually do piano, like a rough piano track. And sometimes it stays in, sometimes it doesn't stay in. So in this case, I kept it in there. So let me play the melody here. Alright, I don't know what's going on with this volume automation here. This is weird. Oops. Okay, so pretty schmaltzy, kind of cheesy, light jazz melody. Okay, so that part repeats again. At the end, though, it goes to this section, and we'll talk about this later, but it gets kind of dark here. Actually, I forgot that note here. So we'll talk about that later, but let's get back to the melody here. So I ended up keeping that piano track in there, but the main elements to the melody are the violins. And I used the cinematic studio strings because I like the room sound for those, for this type of thing. I didn't want like a big orchestral sound of like the Spitfire stuff for this, so I used that. And I also like that it has, when you play at a low velocity, it does the portamento. So that's really important for the beginning. Let me play this. The strings. I'll play actually the two, violin 1 and 2, because they're just playing in octaves here. So listen to this. So here he has that portamento there. Okay, so there's that. I layered Mellotron over the violins just to give it more of that older sound. And I used these free Mellotron samples that I found online, and I put them in. These are for the choir. I could find that and then put that in the link, but so oops. So I'll play that layer for you. And also, I should note that for reverb in the 70s, they didn't have digital reverb, so they used plates. So I used a Valhalla plate for this. And these are the settings I used. I used a Lush copper vocal plate. Had some pre-delay on it, and it's a pretty long plate here. Often they put a lot of plate reverb on Mellotron sounds back then, so I did that. So this is what we have then. I'll play that for you. Oops. Okay, so it gives it that warble kind of effect. So that with the strings, it kind of gives it that edge that we want, that sort of, because these string samples are pretty new, so we wanted to give it more the older sound. So I think that layer adds a lot to achieve the effect that we're going for. Okay, so that's the melody. And then, like I said, I kept the piano in there too, so. Okay. So that's it for the melody. Let's move on. And for the chords, I showed you the original track, which was the Mellotron strings that I put a flanger on. Let me talk more about that. Okay, so that's just the Mellotron string sounds. I'll turn off what I had for the effect here. So this is also going to that plate sound, right? We wanted to match the other Mellotron sound. But what I did was to make it sort of almost like psychedelic in a way, I just put this flanger on it, and I just use this. This isn't even on actually. I just used the phase 2. Oops. Whatever this is like a LFO flanger. So I threw that on there. Give it that effect. More of a phaser really than a flanger, so I think that adds a lot. But over that, I wanted to fill that out a little more, so I added some violas to that. But I took out, for the harmonies, I took out the root notes because I wanted that to be the cello and bass. So I'm thinking more orchestral here. And even splitting the violas into 3 is a little weird, but that's okay. So I had this here with it. So it just kind of fills it out a little more. Right, you know, the violas there. And I like how the tuning's a little weird on that Mellotron. That adds a lot to the effect we're going for. That's the harmonies there. Let's talk about the bass. Actually, before I do that, I want to mention another element. This is sort of like this repeating ostinato thing that I did. And it's in the Rhodes, clavinet, and also this acoustic guitar, which I'll show you these samples here. This is the Ilya acoustic guitar. Sounds pretty cool. I think I also had a delay on it and stuff. Plate. And H delay, just doing a dotted eighth ping pong effect. So I like that on guitar. And I think I also put that delay on the clavinet here. Plate and delay as well. So I'm just using the Logic clavinet for this. I got a kind of bright sound. It has a phaser on it. Once again, the phaser. So anyway, let me play this for you here so you could hear what's going on. It's interesting because it's in 3, so it's kind of like a polyrhythm. So it kind of helps it move along here. So let's hear it with the harmony here. So I think it gives more motion to the cue, you know, because we have this that they're kind of traveling. If you look at the, right? So it gives it a nice motion here, nice movement. Okay, so we're going to talk about the end section later, but let's finish up with this first part here before the cue gets kind of dark. Okay, so that's that. So the bass. Well, to continue with the string orchestra arrangement, I added the Albion cello and bass here. Show you that. I'm using the Albion, the old Albion. But I have everything open and it's pretty loud here. But I like this doubled. It's got the cello and the bass here, so this is just sort of reinforcing the roots here. So I'll play it with the strings here. Get them. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. But to that, I wanted to add sort of a rock band, like a, you know, sort of light rock jazz element to it. I actually added a bass, so let me solo that. So I just played this in. I have some bass samples, but I like playing the bass. I don't know, something about playing the bass in that I like to do instead of samples, because it's a different sound. I don't know, it just seems to sit better with me. So often I'll even though it takes more time, I like to actually play the bass in when I can. So this also gives it more movement because we have this sort of rhythm going. And just to show you the rhythm section here, I also have a drum track. And for the drums, I'm using the Abbey Road drums. Really like the sound of these. The modern Sparkle kit. But I didn't want to go too crazy with the drums, so they're pretty light actually. You got a rim click. I'll show that to you. So here's the rhythm section. So just hi-hat and rim click, you know, bass drum. Pretty straightforward. I think we go to a ride here in this section. But it's important to kind of do little details like this. See, I put this fill in here. I mean, these drums, they kind of have a more modern sound, but at the end I'm going to show you how I put a filter on the track to sort of make it sound older. So here we're on the ride cymbal. So I think having this rhythm section here, it makes it more convincing as like a soft rock kind of track. And I think that's all the elements for the first part. And for the final section, let me play this section here. For this final section, it gets darker here because we're foreshadowing the next scene, but okay, so let's talk about what happens here. Bring in some woodwinds, which I think are a little loud right now. Let me, hold on. Yeah, bring this down a dB. Also this. I used the VSL. I had some other winds in here, but they were too roomy, so I wanted a dry. I was just thinking of how they used to record in smaller studios then. I mean, not always, but. So I was going for a kind of tighter room sound. So I think the VSL was good for that. And what I did was so I'll show you that. And then I threw a lot of plate reverb on that. So quite a bit here to the Valhalla plate once again. So let's just listen to the wood. I did the same with the bassoon here, VSL bassoon. So let's listen to these two together. I was going for kind of like a darker, but also more exotic, kind of like Mid-Eastern, like the desert here, sort of kind of thing, just to make it kind of humorous. But also to foreshadow what's to come here. So kind of like diminished kind of scales here. But also I actually threw in this really low like contrabassoon bass clarinet layer, which I think is Albion 1. Let's check this out. Yeah, so the Albion low woods. So check this out here just to give it. Right, so that gives that lower octave. And then with that, with those woodwinds, we have a mini Moog. For that I use the Arturia mini Moog, which I really like. So this is just a typical Moog bass here with a filter. So this just makes it dark here at the end. So let me, and there's one more element that I put over that, and that was this piano and clavinet layer. So I'll show you where that, check this out. That was a little weird. Okay. Yep, so that's a little quiet there. So it has a delay on it too. So kind of this creepy ostinato over the top here. of what's going on in the. So this kind of goes with the imagery here if we watch with the film. Right, so they're kind of going through the desert there. And for percussion, I put a couple of percussion elements in. The gong scrape with the. Right, so that, and then I have these claves and the shaker here. The claves, actually, I played that echo. It's not really an echo, it's just something I played in. You know, so I did that thing with the velocity. But I did use an echo on this shaker. So I use the H delay on this. Set to dotted eighth notes and ping pong. So that adds a cool element, I think. So let's listen to this whole end section here with the footage so you can get the idea. Okay, so this is a lot of fun here. So, yeah, we had a lot of fun with this. But finally, one of the most important things was, how do we get it to sound of that period, or just kind of like a record or a bad recording? And how I did that was, let me show you the master track, the master bus here. I used isotope vinyl here for that, and I didn't want too much warp, so I set this at about 20%, but I did want that sort of pitch, that warp pitch. And for the year, you can pick the year you want to simulate the recording. All that does really is just filters out like lows, gives you like a bandpass filter. Let me turn this on and just show you here what the sound is. So here's with it, and here's without. So see, it gives you that more, this bandpass, but also gives you this wear sound, and then this, which kind of degrades the sound, and then we have this warp of the pitch. You can also change it to mono, but I didn't want to go that far. Make it like that. Kept it on stereo, but so that's what I did with the vinyl effect here. So let's listen to the track one more time all the way through with the footage, and yeah, just so you can get an idea of what I did. So please subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and then yeah, leave some comments or questions below. Love to hear from you guys. Yeah, I hope this was helpful if you ever, as a composer, come across something where you want to try to imitate the sound of a 70s recording or something like that. I mean, keep in mind, this is also, I actually will probably deliver the tracks without this isotope effect, just because the mixer, that's kind of what they do, so they'll handle that. But it's good to know how to do this quickly, just to give the director an idea of what it's going to sound like. Okay, so here's the whole cue one last time. Thanks for watching.